The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz along with Tony Palmeri. As most of you all know, I think, on Tuesday, February 15th, got to get used to the fact that there's a primary here, there will be a primary election. People will be going to the polls to vote for 3 people out of 14 candidates running for City Council. And we're also going to be voting for the first time for our first directly elected mayor in something like 50 years. There are 5 people on the ballot for mayor. We've interviewed some of them already. We are joined this evening by 2 of them. In the first half, we're very pleased to welcome current City Council member, Mr. Bill Castle, to the show. In the second half, Paul Esslinger will be here. Welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
We appreciate your taking time out of your schedule. Why don't we just start like we do with most candidates? Why don't you tell folks why you're seeking the position of our first elected mayor, directly elected mayor?
I'll do that. I think that I can bring proven leadership to the Oshkosh Common Council, the Oshkosh community, and I think that my years of experience of being a council member, being a business owner in the community, of being a lifelong citizen of Oshkosh, of caring for this community, raising a family, I think I bring a lot of characteristics that would make me a good mayor, so for that reason I'm running for mayor.
But now what is interesting to a lot of folks is you voted against the proposal that would allow for an elected mayor, is that correct?
That's correct.
So why, if you didn't support letting the people vote for mayor, why now are you running for that position?
Because I think that my ability to lead this council would be an asset, and the fact that I was up for election, I decided to run for that position.
But if you had your druthers, Bill, you would still prefer that it would be the 7 members of the council that would be electing the mayor. Is that a fair statement?
I always felt that everybody up there was elected.
Mm-hmm.
So let that body appoint somebody to be the leader, as they do in the county board, as they do in the House of Representatives. Those people are all elected by their constituents, and then that body elects a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So because that's the way it was, I supported it. The citizens went a different direction. That's fine. Now I'm going to run for that position.
One more, can I have one more, Cheryl?
Yeah, and then I've got one before
sure.
we get into these other.
One of our previous mayoral candidates, Mark Madison, was here, and he thought it was almost inappropriate for Mr. Esslinger to run, because if Paul gets elected, then there'll have to be an appointment to the council to fill his term. Do you share that belief? Are you bothered by the appointment?
Well, again, I prefer to see everybody elected. But, you know, if Mr. Esslinger runs, which he is running,
right,
if he's successful, that's the case. Nothing I can do about it, but that is a fact.
Okay.
Last April, when the new council members were sworn in, I believe it was Mrs. Maddox who had nominated you for deputy mayor, and at that time you turned that down, or you wanted to turn it down. They wouldn't let you per the rules. So but you said that you didn't have enough time. What has changed that you didn't have time to be deputy mayor, but you do have time to be mayor?
What's changed is the fact that I'm up for election. At that time, that body, and that was, I thought, one of the nice things about the council, appointing leaders, mayor and deputy mayor. And I think that I use that, to be honest, as my reason to give other people the opportunity to serve in a leadership capacity. I have served in a leadership capacity. That's one of the strengths I think I bring as a candidate for mayor. So I thought, let somebody else, but now it's not the same rules. So that was my reason. I just thought somebody else can do it.
Okay. We've got some questions put together that we've been asking all the council and mayoral candidates. Some of these, based upon your votes, we know how you stand, but for the record, do you approve the use of taxpayer dollars for the amphitheater?
Obviously I do. I supported that when it came forward. I think that that was part of a major overall discussion that the city, all the citizens, there were town hall meetings down at, I can remember going to one at that time. I was a private citizen, not an elected official, at the convention center where they talked about all these activities that would bring new life to the center city, and it worked its way through all the different commissions, and as they came forward me as a council member, I supported it, and I think it's the right thing. It's drawing lots of new opportunities to downtown Oshkosh, so I supported it.
Now we know that heavily involved in that project is the C.R. Meyer company, and you, in your council member statement at the last meeting, revealed what I guess a lot of people knew, that you and the president of C.R. Meyer, Mr. Martini, are very close friends.
That's correct.
Right? And which is fine. We all respect that. Yet you have voted on everything affecting this amphitheater, including the no-bid contract for C.R. Meyer. In hindsight, do you think those votes were inappropriate? Should you have recused yourself?
No, because I personally received no benefit from that. The bid that C.R. Meyer, they did put a bid in on work that they performed. They were the low bidder. A lot of the amphitheater construction was private money, and the private contributors decided who'd be the builder on that. But on things that the city was involved in, there were C.R. Meyer was the low bidder.
But even though you don't benefit personally, financially, we know that. The fact that Mr. Martini is your golf buddy, doesn't it have the appearance that you're essentially voting to give taxpayer dollars to a very close friend of yours?
Well, I'm proud of the fact that I've been in this community for lots of years.
And we respect that.
And I probably can say within 2 or 3 different either generations or connections that I probably know an awful lot of people in this community. And if I had looked at my friendship, acquaintance, that they brought something before the council, I probably shouldn't run for a council seat because I'd say I couldn't vote. And I think to sit there and just say present is not the way to be a council member.
Well, did you read Mr. Rickman's column in the Oshkosh Northwestern last Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. Did you disagree with him? He said Bill Castle committed 2 blunders. He not only revealing that maybe the city's an old boy network, discussing business behind the scenes, but that you even introduced business during the council member statements, which he said is a violation of open meetings laws. Right. Is that correct?
Well, and Warren Kraft has said that previously too.
So did you, at the time that happened at that meeting, did you think you were violating open meetings laws?
No, I did not.
In hindsight now, do you think that you did?
No, because what I did was, first of all, talk about my friendship, which I'm very proud of with people. Then I said that because of this discussion, I want to talk about, is there something we as a council and you as a staff need to bring forward at some later date? And it was just to talk about. There's lots of times I feel council members talk about things that they are thinking about, whether it's me or other council members, to bring forward. And I know this came from, excuse me, a discussion the Lake Geneva City Council had, where a council member brought something forward, and I think that whole council voted on it that night to make it happen. I had no intention of in a council voting on anything that day. What I wanted to do was talk about it in an open forum so we all can hear about it, instead of doing it behind the scenes. So I don't think I did anything wrong. I know it's a gray area that the staff is struggling with. The whole council member statements is a gray area. So.
But I do think that to bring up Mr. Martini during council member statements was highly inappropriate. No other citizen has ever had that opportunity and may not ever again. I was glad to see Mark Harris kind of shut that down, but he should have shut it down, I think, right away. What do you say about that, about having a citizen come up and speak during council member statements?
The council said bring him up. I said he's in the audience if people want some more questions. So, as the mayor usually does, he asks the council if there's any objections. So, there wasn't any objections, so they brought him forward. And I don't think there was any.
So, in summary, any future business affecting C.R. Meyer, you will continue to vote on it?
Yes.
As a councilman or as mayor? You
Yes.
have no intention of recusing yourself?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I know Ben Ganther on a first-name basis. I know Bob Albright on a first-name basis. So if those firms are elected, I should recuse myself from them also? I mean, like I say, I know a lot of people in this community. When Castle Pierce, my employer, a company I own with my brother, has been awarded contracts, I voted present on those.
Oh, it's because those are family members.
Well, it's
So
the company I'm involved
right,
in.
right.
By selling the city something, the company I'm involved in, just like I know Burke Tower, when the university's involved in things, he excuses himself. He probably knows some of these same people I just named.
And this I will say in Burke Tower's favor, though, he even has recused himself when I believe it's his stepdaughter or
Yeah.
daughter.
Exactly,
whatever.
right?
And he has nothing
it's a-
to gain financially himself there either. But yet he's recused himself, and I've beat up on Burke many times, but from that standpoint, I will give him credit. He wants to avoid any kind of image or perception of impropriety, and so I'll give him credit.
And I
for
think
that.
just to go back a step, I'm on the NOVA treatment board. And when that whole NOVA project was coming before the council, I asked the city attorney, this is I'm a non-paid board member. Should I vote on this? And I'm pretty confident my answer, or his answer to me, and I followed that, was probably not. Even though you don't receive any benefit from it, there's a perception. So I voted no. And if a family member of mine is involved in something, I'll vote no on that too. But again, friends are friends, and I'm not.
Sure. Different topic.
Okay.
What are your feelings on the Pollock pool? Should the city try to keep it open?
That to me is, I think, a great example of how this city has worked hard to keep things going. That's a 40-year-old pool. And the city, previous administrations and employees deserve a lot of thank you for keeping that thing up and running that long. In this kind of a climate, I think that's amazing. But it's run a useful life.
So it's time to close it.
And I think that particular structure is not useful any longer.
All right. How did you vote on the smoking ban? You were opposed to the referendum to ban smoking. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that still your position?
I believe that private institution or private businesses should make decisions that govern their operation. As the owner of Castle Pierce Printing Company, we have a no smoking policy in our building.
Okay.
And we've made that a company-wide, building-wide policy.
All right.
And I think that's, as I said, that's the owner's prerogative.
Okay. If you get elected mayor, you will not have veto power. And you don't think the mayor should have veto power, is that correct?
I'm a firm believer that the manager form of government is the right form of government for this city.
Okay.
So
It works. The manager form of government works.
I think so.
Okay. Cheryl?
There's a couple of questions here, Bill, about labor issues. The city of Appleton had passed a resolution to boycott Federal Signals products after they decided to close and move to Canada. Would you support such a boycott coming from the city of Oshkosh?
Federal Signal, in other words, Leach Company. I really feel for those employees at the Leach Company. I think that it's unfortunate when you've put a lot of years of hard labor that all of a sudden a company pulls up and moves on. So I have sympathy for them. But Leach is a major manufacturer of refuge vehicles. And I just think that we have to look long and hard at that. So I'm not sure that I would support something like that.
Okay. And we've had strikes while you've been on the council, and you don't believe that elected officials should walk a picket line. Is that fair?
I believe that elected officials should be very aware of what's going on in this community. and understand management's position and the labor union position. But, you know, we should be aware of it. But I don't think we should take sides.
Even if it's a situation like with, was it Rockwell? What were they? Axle Tech.
Axle Tech.
Where the workers are local, they've been here many years, the owner is a out-of-town owner. Is it still playing sides to say, I'm going to support the people who live here and pay taxes and are working hard? In other words, the fact that management is out of town, doesn't that give the workers...
Well, there's management here in town running it.
Right. But they're owned by an out-of-town corporation. That doesn't matter.
There could be local stockholders.
Okay. Cheryl?
Okay. Currently, as you well know, the City Council has a 5-minute rule in place for citizens making citizen statements at the end. Do you think that that should be maintained, or do you think that there should be some additional time given? Should people just be allowed to go as long as they need? What do you think?
There's a 5-minute rule in place for all visits to the podium to speak, whether it's citizen statements or if you want to speak on an agenda item. And over the years, I think that the Oshkosh Common Council has given the community plenty of opportunity to speak, and I'm a firm believer that you should have enough time to get your thoughts clearly across to the council, and we have granted longer times when presentations need it.
Sure.
But to allow people just to ramble, I'm not for that, so that's why a 5-minute rule is...
In the citizen statements currently, Bill, citizens can't address agenda items. Is that, you think it should stay that way?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they could come up and address the agenda item, and what it is, you know, come up and tell us your thoughts on that agenda item when it's brought up for public reading.
Right, right.
But once a decision's been made, you know, and part of me has always said, you know, there's always a tough decision sometimes they have to make. 90% of what we make a decision on up there is pretty routine.
Right.
But the 10%, there's always going to be, you know, somebody that's not going to like you and not agree with you. But, you know, you have to make a decision and move on. And I really think that when I make a decision, I've examined it from all sides, and I want to make sure that I've thought about it, and I make it and we move on. So I have to allow somebody to come back up and bring it back and revisit it. I just think that's a good rule, and I support it.
Okay. As you sit here as a candidate, what do you see as the major issue facing the city right now?
Well, I think Oshkosh has been a community that has shown significant growth over the last couple decades, both in population and in economic dollars and cents tax base. And I really think that the issue is, how can we continue that going at a reasonable tax base that the citizens say, this, you know, this is working, Oshkosh is a great community, I want to continue to be part of it.
What specific types of growth are you talking about when you say that we need to keep growing? What do you mean grow more businesses? I mean, what do you mean?
Well, I think, you know, grow good neighborhoods that people can, you know, walk their dogs at night, walk with their loved one if they want, enjoy the city. That to me is the first and most important thing, to have a city that people want to be part of. Now, what makes it a great city? You've got to have good education, you've got to have good commerce, you've got to have good business. All these things have to, quality of life issues, all have to come together in a way that people want to be part of this community. And I think I can bring that proven leadership to make Oshkosh continue to grow in that direction.
All right, sure.
You said at a reasonable tax rate, we should grow with a reasonable tax rate. What to you is a reasonable tax rate?
Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5% a year. But if you can get away with less some years, great. If certain things are brought forward that are important to all these issues I just talked about, maybe it's going to be a little bit more.
So 5.7% was not reasonable.
Well, but again, you know, we had no tax increase the previous year. You know, and that's always been a tough decision to make as an elected person. You know, do you try to really rein things in on one year and then all of a sudden come back to bite you in a future year?
Right. Right.
And so to me, though, I looked at it as over the last 2 years, we're in the neighborhood of 2.5%.
Yeah. All right.
Got a question about something that was just unveiled yesterday, and for the audience, we're taping this on the 20th of January. A condo hotel indoor water park is being proposed for along the Fox River. It's a $62 million proposal. And according to the newspaper article, they are hoping to, if this goes through, break ground by May or late spring, which, if that's the case, then this would probably have to be put on a fast track too, and would probably come before the current council as opposed to any new council that is seated after the April election. Given the diversity in opinions about the amphitheater, would you think that this needs to be put on a fast track, or should the council take more time, be more judicious in its deliberations, and give this some more thought than what a lot of citizens believe was given to the amphitheater?
Well, first of all, I think this is pretty exciting stuff for Oshkosh.
I agree,
Right.
depending on what they want from the city.
And maybe they don't want anything from the city.
Right, and we don't know.
And we don't know. So, you know, if they came up here and said, you know, we don't want anything from the city except to provide us fire protection, police protection, the things we expect to get for our taxes, you know, why shouldn't it be on a fast track? If they come up, though, and say, you know, we need TIFs, you know, and these are all, as people like to say, these are the devil in the details. You know, then, you know, you need to understand what it's all about and move it forward in a reasonable pace that everybody buys into. And just because the developers and the newspapers say they want to move it fast, doesn't say that I'm...
Mark Harris is hoping it's true. He's quoted as saying he hopes that they do break ground by late spring or May. That seems to suggest that he certainly is in favor of just pushing this forward, and he makes a comment like that if this is an accurate quote, based on not knowing anything, really.
As a citizen, Bill, do you think that Oshkosh needs condos on the Fox River? Is that your idea of a good choice of development for that area?
Well, I don't know of any industries any longer that need the river, and which Oshkosh, that was what the main reason Oshkosh developed over the last century, was that we had a good river and we had industries that needed the river. So now the river has become a place to live. Water is an attractive area to set up and build housing. And if developers feel, and they obviously must, when somebody comes forward with this kind of development, and Oshkosh has been looked at by a lot of other out-of-state, out-of-area developers, that they must think there's the right ingredients in this city to make Oshkosh attractive. I don't see any problem with using the riverfront for condo-type living.
Part of this, my understanding is, might include the building of a parking ramp that might have, did the newspaper have the number? Like
Yes, 450, I think.
450 stalls, which that could be a $4 million project.
450.
Which they say it's about $10,000 per.
$10,600.
All right, so we're talking over $4 million.
That today. Yep.
Let's say these developers would say, you know, the city, to show its commitment, has to build the parking ramp. Is that a good use of taxpayer money?
I don't want to speculate on what they might ask for. They might build that themselves. I mean, you and I think we all are getting our information from the exact same place. Because even though I'm a present sitting council member, I have not seen anything come through the city.
Right.
I've read it in the newspaper, saw it on Channel 11 News last night. That was the first time I saw anything about it. So.
Well, let me ask you this, Bill, because they attempted a project like this. They had proposed a project like this in Escanaba, Michigan. And I can't seem to find it right now, but it was like $35 million worth or something like that.
Right.
And it didn't go through there for whatever reason. Yeah, it had failed there. As part of deliberations, would you as a council member or mayor, if you're elected mayor, contact the folks in Escanaba, find out, you know, try and do an apples to apples comparison and see why a $35 million project didn't work there, but something that is larger than our whole city budget would work here?
You bet I would.
Okay.
I would give Escanaba a call and see just what the reason was that there was an issue up there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bill, I've read on the Oshkosh News website that a new political advocacy group called, is it Forward Oshkosh or Progress Oshkosh?
Well, there's two different names. One is kind of a splinter of
one is
the
one is
other.
having $100 a plate, I guess, fundraiser. That's going to be at Mr. Ganther's house, who does a lot of business for the city. Would you attend something like that as a candidate for mayor?
Well, I've gone to other political fundraisers for presidents, senators, things like that. I have to think about it, but I don't want to say no, I'm not, or yes, I am. I just need to think about it and see what night it is. Maybe I can't make it just because I've got a conflict.
Right. But if someone gives the $100 to go to that fundraiser, and then Mr. Ganther, with all due respect to him, I know he's done a lot of tremendous stuff in this community, could a person who gave that $100 then vote on business affecting Mr. Ganther? You wouldn't see a conflict in that either?
No, I think it's the American way is that you need money to run a campaign. And I've certainly, the first time I ran, I got money.
Right.
I don't think I've ever made a vote based on, in fact, I know I haven't ever made a vote based on the fact that so-and-so either gave me money or didn't give me money. I look at it from what is the best interest in the city of Oshkosh.
Right. A few years ago when you ran, Bill, in your first run as a council member, you left the council, said that you willingly term limited yourself, correct?
That's correct.
Then you came back. Now you've been back for 2 more terms, right?
That's correct.
And now you might get elected for a term as mayor. Are you going to term limit yourself again? Let's say you get elected mayor this time. Is this going to be it, or do you plan on running again?
This is to me, a new venture.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll look at it down the road, but I don't think since I'm now running for mayor, it's a new venture.
But you're not ready to say it would be your only term as mayor. You might go on it for another term.
Right. I'm
Okay.
not saying one way or the other.
Okay. Cheryl?
Okay. Just real quickly, and then we're going to give you about 30 seconds or so to tell folks why they should vote for you. A lot of people are upset about the street lights being extinguished, 2,000 and some over the last couple of years, and yet, colored lighting, decorative bricks, or is it colored bricks and decorative lighting on Wisconsin Avenue Bridge? How do you justify that? Turning out street lights but spending money there?
I think that Oshkosh spent a little too much of our energy getting new streetlights in as development took place, not realizing what public service was going to charge us for each of these poles that went in. I don't think your number is quite accurate on 2,000. I know we've turned off lights, and I know in our last budget discussion that our city individuals that are in charge of that and our police department will all agreed that there's no further lights that can be turned off in the community.
Okay.
And we've also been willing to listen to areas if they feel that there's a safety issue going on. I had one turned off in my neighborhood. No question, it's a little bit darker. Is it unsafe? I don't think so.
Okay.
And
We're just about out of time, Bill. Why don't you look into camera 3 and tell folks why they should vote for you on Tuesday, February 15th.
well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of the show today. And I feel that I bring a proven leadership to the Oshkosh Common Council and the city of Oshkosh. And if elected mayor, that I can use my experience as a business leader, a family man, my history of living in Oshkosh, to make Oshkosh a place that all citizens will continue to love to call home. So for that reason, I think I can do a good job, and I would appreciate your vote on February the 15th. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And thank you. We'll be right back. We're going to take a short public service announcement break, and then we'll be joined by Paul Esslinger. We'll be right back.
Okay. We got to kick you out of here.
We just escaped.
I escaped
I escaped.
by foot.
Run across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
Welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. We are very pleased to be joined now by another candidate for the first directly elected mayor in 50 years for the city of Oshkosh, Mr. Paul Esslinger. Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate your taking time out to be here. Like we ask most candidates, why don't you start out by telling us why you're seeking this position?
Well, first of all, I'd like to start by saying why we should have the position. I think, as many people know, we haven't had this a directly elected mayor for over 50 years, and I think that was wrong. So I'm glad that now that we do have the position, and now that we do, I'd like, I've been on the council for 5 years, and I'd like to take a leadership role on the council. And obviously, a mayor does take a leadership role. I think that I've done a good job. I've been fiscally responsible with people's money, fielded several phone calls and talked to a lot of people, and they've actually told me to run. And it's just a great pleasure and an honor to fill that role. So hopefully, I can fill that role.
Okay. We had Mr. Mark Madison on a few weeks back, and he, of course, is also seeking the position of mayor. He took a couple of shots at you. He had some misinformation. First of all, he said that this was actually your proposal that you had brought forward, and clearly it was not. I think a lot of us, myself included, were pushing for a strong mayor with some veto power and so forth, some executive power. But be that as it may, he did not feel that you should be elected to this position, because if you are elected, then there's another 1 year of your term that would have to be filled. And as they typically fill these appointments, or fill these vacated seats, they are filled by appointment. He didn't think that that was an appropriate way to fill the seat. How do you respond to that? Well,
I think that's the epitome of hypocrisy. Mr. Madison, who was on the county board, got his position on the county board because Ron Montgomery, who was a county board supervisor, left to take a position with the county, and his seat was left open. So Mr. Madison was appointed to the county board. So I don't know if it's okay to appoint people to the county board but not the city council. I almost fell out of my chair when I heard that. So, he's criticizing someone for taking a position that, obviously your seat has to be appointed, and then he was appointed himself. So I didn't understand that. Yeah,
I have had further online debate about that very issue with him. His contention here, and maybe you can just address this, his contention is that the difference being that when he was appointed to county board, there were no other candidates seeking that seat, and here there are 14 people seeking a seat on the council.
Well, that may be true, but I mean, if you have a problem with people being appointed, you have a problem with people being appointed. He could have declined that, saying, I don't think people should be appointed to a board or a commission, council, whatever the case may be. You should wait until the next election until people can, can vote for that position.
Okay. All right.
We're going to ask you, Paul, some questions we've been asking all the candidates.
Rapid fires?
Yeah, okay. But I think we know your answers to a lot of them. You've been probably the most vocal opponent of the way the amphitheater's been financed.
Right.
Do you think any taxpayer dollars should be used for that?
Tony, I think The potential of using taxpayer dollars was there, however, with no plan whatsoever on the project, the way it was ramrodded down people's throats, no public input except for a couple of people coming to council meetings. No, if there would have been a town hall meeting, if you will, something like that, and there was a lot of support, and people said, "This is what we want," then maybe
okay, not. But now we now know the project is going on.
Right,
it's going to be there. We're going to have the amphitheater. I think some people have the concern that the mayor, especially, needs to be a cheerleader for this at this point. Since we're going to have it, it's going to be there. What would you say to the criticism that Paul Esslinger might just be too negative about this?
Well, it seems, I think the folks that are leveling this negative charge, it just seems that if you don't agree with their position, you're negative, whatever their position is. And I'm just wondering, if they disagree with my position on things, do I have the right to call them negative? So, the mayor needs to take a leadership role.
Right.
I don't think the mayor needs to be a cheerleader for things that come down the pike, that everything that comes down the pike. I mean, that's ridiculous. As a voting member of the city council, the mayor needs to be responsible, and as I said before, needs to be responsible for the tax dollars that people that we're taking from them.
But if you're elected mayor in April, and I think by Memorial Day they want to be ready for a show, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
If not sooner.
So you'd be mayor by the time the first show comes in.
Right.
Would you talk down the event?
Absolutely not.
So you would be kind of like a cheerleader.
Oh, absolutely. And I've said, you're absolutely right, Tony. We are going to get this amphitheater.
Right.
And I think it's my responsibility now, and anyone else that gets elected to the city council, now that we've spent that money, it is in the city's best interest and the taxpayers' best interest to make sure that thing goes. I mean, we can talk about if you liked it or not, and I think that is something we should talk about. Right. But the fact of the matter is, we've spent the money, and now the taxpayers need a return on that investment.
All right. And obviously, the waiving the bid, you were against
ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
Just as a general rule, I kind of want to go back to the first question. As a general rule, how do you feel about public monies being spent on projects like the amphitheater?
Again, Cheryl, you have to have a plan. You have to have a buy-in from the public. What is the return on the investment dollar that you're looking at? Is it going to be a family event where several different people are going to be able to utilize that event or that building, whatever the case may be? It's hard to give it a broad brush, but again, back to responsibility. You have to be responsible and look at things on a basis as it comes up. And I just, again, that amphitheater was just irresponsible.
So a case-by-case basis.
Case-by-case basis.
It might be appropriate to use public money at some point.
It may be.
Okay.
It may be.
All
Absolutely,
right.
sure.
Yeah, we've been saying for a long time, if the case is made.
Sure.
Yeah.
Paul, we just had Bill Castle here, and he said that Pollock Pool served a great purpose for many years, but it's outlived its time. Time to close it. What do you believe about Pollock Pool?
I disagree with that. The Pollock Pool was, much like our amphitheater project, was money that was given from a family to the city of Oshkosh for that purpose. And I think we've let it languish over the years. It's become not an eyesore, but it's become in disrepair. And instead of putting $150,000 into splash pads, playground equipment, and stuff that we don't need, let's use that money for a Pollock Pool where kids can go there and use that.
If you were elected mayor, would you take a lead on this issue? Would you try to get it into the public consciousness?
Yeah,
that we should
actually,
say this?
I would work with Councilmember Peschel, who's talked to some groups or entities, I believe, and they're looking at maybe producing some dollars that we could use on an operating budget for it. So yeah, I'd just like to see it come back.
Okay, and you remain opposed to any smoking ban in restaurants? Is that
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Okay, on what's your main argument for that?
Well, my main argument is that restaurant owners and other business people have put their sweat equity into their business, and they should be allowed to decide who they want in their restaurant. And I think some restaurants have found that their business increased, and so it was a lesson in capitalism for them. The market drives whatever people want, and some people lost money. I know, like Jeff's on Rugby lost thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's just not right for someone to come in. I should not instill my beliefs on a business and tell them. I mean, I can make suggestions. I like this or I don't like that, but I don't think it's right for a council to force businesses to run in that manner.
Okay.
If the restaurant owners themselves were to come forward and say, we would like to see a partial ban of some kind or something like that. In other words, if they brought something forward themselves, seeking council and mayoral approval, where would you stand on that?
Boy, you know,
either to pass it as an ordinance or to put it on as a referendum.
Yeah, I'd be willing to work with them on that. I would hope that they'd have a buy-in also with the Breathe Free folks to see if they, you know, approved of it or not.
I don't think those two groups will ever see eye to eye.
Probably not. I really do wish they would, but probably not. But if they came up with something that they felt was appropriate, I'd certainly take a look at it.
Okay. You obviously supported a mayor position which would have veto power for the mayor. You still support that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Is that something, as mayor, you would advocate for? Do you want the council to revisit this again?
Yeah. Well, I did advocate for it, obviously. It really is going to be dependent on what type of council we have in April. I think the reality is that that this council may turn over, so to speak.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people there, just watching your shows that you've had with council candidates and talking to others, that they think that there should be a strong mayor. So,
is this something, and you may not know the answer to this, is this something the council could do without going to a referendum?
Yes, it would take a supermajority, but the council could pass any type of form of government that they want.
And you would be comfortable with, say, 5 members of the council voting to give veto power to the mayor?
I probably would have a problem with that. I think the people, you know, we gave the people the right, and Mr. Castle voted against that, to even let people have the right to vote for that. That's a pretty important issue. What type of government? People are paying the taxes. They're the ones that are going out and voting. So I would be more comfortable with putting that on a referendum. And if they didn't like it, then they don't like it. We shouldn't have it.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We've been talking about a couple different labor issues with all the candidates too. As you no doubt know, the city of Appleton, their city council made a decision to pass a resolution boycotting Federal Signal's products after they decided to leave Oshkosh and go to Canada. For anyone watching, of course, Federal Signal is the former Leach Company. Would you be in favor of the Oshkosh Common Council passing such a boycott?
No. And the reason I say that is I took the time and called one of the union reps. I don't know if there was a couple different union factions that were in there. This gentleman has an office, I think it was in Sheboygan or Milwaukee, I don't remember what it was, but I asked him that question, and he said, no, I don't think it would be a good idea. We have 30, 40 people left in some managerial form, I believe, in Oshkosh. It's a very hot-button issue, and I feel that if the city council did that, we may lose the rest of those jobs. So, as well-intentioned as it is, I'm not willing to put those jobs at risk.
Would you ever walk a picket line with striking workers, either as an elected official or as just Paul Esslinger, private citizen?
As an elected official, absolutely not. As Paul Esslinger, if I believed in their cause, you better believe I would.
Why not as an elected official? Wouldn't it carry more weight as an elected official?
Because I don't think, as being a mayor or a city council person, I don't think you have. I don't think it's appropriate for an elected official who does not have any power in any negotiations to be walking as that person, as the mayor. I think that sends the wrong signal.
Even if it's a case like Axle Tech, where you got these people, the workers who've been there some of them 30 years. Yeah. You've got these out-of-state owners who I think we all could agree were not really negotiating in good faith, at least look that way. Isn't it the responsible thing for the elected official to step in at that point and say, we are going to take the side of these working people?
Again, a mayor and the city council have nothing to do with those contract negotiations. If they were somehow informed or had some way, shape, or form to do with those negotiations, that might be a different story. But that's not our drive on the city council.
Right. Even just to show solidarity for these people, because I think a lot of folks, Paul, feel that the city council just doesn't give a damn, frankly.
Yeah,
well, that's the concern.
Well, it's interesting you asked this question because I got a call from a union representative who works for the state corrections and asked if I would walk it wasn't a picket line, it was a informational, I can't remember what the technical term is.
On Doyle's State of the State?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I was asked to walk that, and I said, I really would love to, but my work had a conflict with that. So I would walk that as Paul Esslinger because I believed in their cause, but I would not walk that as Paul Esslinger, council member.
Okay. You think we should maintain the 5-minute rule at the meetings?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And currently, the citizens can't speak to agenda items during those citizen statements. Should that stay also?
Yeah, I think so, because then you just unless if something was amended, you know, if something came forward and citizens have the ability to speak on that.
Right.
If I amended something or someone on the council moved to amend that and it changed the scope, it changed the complexity of the resolution or ordinance, then absolutely those people. And I've talked to the mayor.
But that would be before you guys voted on it.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And Paul, what do you see as the major issue facing the city right now?
Well, I can tell you, if the phone calls and the contact that I've had from people on the street is any indication, they are angry. They're angry at, I think it's a lack of respect, lack of, I think council members are just out of touch with the reality of the majority of the city, and they're angry at how their money is being spent. So, you know, I'm thinking budgets are budgets, and how tax money is spent are probably the biggest issue that we have right now. You know, I've talked to people that said, I have no problem with spending money on taxes. I realize that we have to do that. Let's be responsible and give me a reason why I should be spending my money in that manner.
Paul, we're taping this on the 20th of January, and just yesterday there was a kind of a preliminary type unveiling, if you will, of a proposed $62 million condo water park type project.
With a tiki bar. Don't forget the tiki
bar. The tiki bar, yes.
I'm calling it Tiki Bar TIF District.
Along the Fox River.
Right.
You know, $62 million, that's $4 million more than our entire city budget. Personally, I think it's a wonderful thing if it's done right and if the city's not making a lot of concessions.
Right.
What is your feeling on this? How much detail do we really know? I don't think we know that much right now.
No.
But do you think that this is going to be put on a fast track and pushed through?
Oh, I'll guarantee you it's going to be put on a fast track, because I'm sure, and I was at the meeting when it was unveiled, and it's a beautiful complex, and you know, the tiki bar and all. I mean, it's all great, but see, we got half of the story. We were not allowed to ask any questions of what kind of concessions are we looking at, and you know, the meat of the situation. And so, you know, when it comes about how much taxpayers are going to be footing the bill for this, once again, then I can give you a clear indication. But I mean, if you're asking me what I think of the project, I think the project is awesome. But the proof is in the pudding.
At the risk of being called a cobblestoner by those great progressives over on the editorial board. Oshkosh needs condominiums on the Fox River?
Yeah,
I mean,
that might be a tough sell. It's a multi-complex. There's a water park inside, a restaurant. I guess there's going to be an upscale restaurant. There will be condo units. There will be a marina on there. So I mean, it's a multifaceted complex.
See, did you vote to create this redevelopment authority? You voted for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
My fear when the council voted for that is that exactly this would happen.
Yeah.
That we'd get a proposal for a multi-million-dollar project without one citizen ever being asked, what do you really want in that part of the town?
Yeah.
Because you've thrown out the idea several times of some kind of amusement complex based on, is it Bay Beach?
Bay Beach up in Green Bay.
So obviously we can't do both, right? We get the condos, and then that's it, right? That's it.
Well, I don't know. We may be doing the condos, and we may be doing the amphitheater at the same time, Tony.
Of course.
So we can do whatever 4 council members want us to do.
But didn't the Bay Park amusement idea, your idea, doesn't that deserve some extended discussion?
Yes, it does. I've given it to the parks director, and I think it got shuffled underneath.
But if the Tiki TIF district is on the fast track, how will this ever...
forget about it.
Forget about it.
So
what I want to know is what's going on? How can we move this on a fast track when there's at least one substantive idea that has gotten no discussion yet?
What we need to do, Tony, and and I'm not trying to pawn this off saying I don't want to make a decision on it, but when we find out what the concessions are supposed to be, the total dollar amount that the taxpayers are looking to foot the bill for this complex, I think it needs to be put on a referendum. If we're looking at this huge of a complex, and I think the concessions are going to be large.
5 million, 10 million?
10 million, 10, 15 million
All right.
dollars would be my guess. Now again, we're taping on the 20th of January.
Right.
I have no idea, but we need to find out what the total package is that the taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill for, and put it on a binding referendum.
A binding referendum?
A binding referendum. Yeah.
Rather than advisory.
Absolutely.
Meaning that, because advisory just means that it comes before the council and the council can still do what it
Because, Cheryl,
wants.
right now, again, as I stated earlier, I think there's 5 members of this council that just don't get it, that don't understand what people want. Well, let's put it on a binding referendum so those people that actually are paying the bill, they get to make the decision. And let's send a clear message. We had a referendum on building a new school, you know, for kids. I mean, for kids' education. Now, there was arguments for and against it. That lost, and it lost huge. So if we had a referendum that was defeated for schools, what in God's sake do you think is going to happen with something like that, where taxpayers, we've already spent over $3 million on Riverside Park, why are taxpayers going to want to spend $15 more million on something else?
Because let me take the point of view of Progress Oshkosh or Forward Oshkosh. They would say because in this situation, you've got a developer who's probably going to put in how much of their own money?
We don't know.
We don't know.
But it could be as much as 30, 40 million, right?
Yeah, could be.
Wouldn't they then say, look, we know taxpayers don't like shelling out $10 million or $5 million, but leadership means voting for that so that we get 30 million from the developer. That's not a good vote?
I would say, what's your justification? What's my return on the investment? Do we have the money to spend to begin with? Are we going to continue spending money in Riverside Park? Have you done an analysis? How many people are going to come to the condos? How many people are going to go to the water park?
I'd like to know.
What are the costs of the condos? What are the costs of the restaurant? What is the cost to get into the water park? I mean, we have a lot of questions to ask.
And will it be open? Will the water park be open to the public, the general public? Because, you know, we've lost our municipal pool.
One thing, I just want to get this in, another thing that Mark Madison was talking about last time, and I think other people are under the fallacy of this, and shame on Mr. Madison for not doing his homework on this. He led you guys to believe that the Riverside Park project is now completely funded.
Oh, he didn't lead us to believe that.
Well, I know, you guys were bucking it.
He's misunderstood, and we tried to point that out.
And he said he needed new information. Well, Mark, I've got it right here. And then now this does not count $225,000 for the LDR downtown plan. That was the total concept. So part of that goes to the Riverside. And he was, by the way, he was saying the LCD plan. I don't know what the LCD plan is. It does not include interest on the bonds. So here we have it: $940,000 for the land, $1.4 million in site development, $75,000 for pavilion design, $125,000 for design plans for phase number 2, and $675,000 for the golden commodes, which may now be cheaper because we've got people that are looking at saving some money there. So that comes to $3.215 million that the taxpayers are going to be paying for, and then we have phase 2 to come yet. So.
And is there a phase 3 also?
There's probably a lot of phases,
okay.
Cheryl.
As someone who does their homework, and we're running out of time here, but just real briefly, you know, you've always done your homework. This proposal for the waterfront, $62 million proposal. They attempted something like this, but on a much smaller scale, $35 million in Escanaba, Michigan. As someone who does their homework, whether you're elected mayor or whether you just retain your seat on the council, will you take it upon yourself, Paul Esslinger, to call the people in Escanaba, Michigan and find out why that kind of faltered there and how they expect something that is not quite twice the amount, but getting close to that, would work here?
Well, the answer to that is yes, and I would phrase it in 2 different ways. Number one is, if the council needs to vote on this, if it doesn't go to a referendum, I need to know that information so I can pass that along to other council members, which maybe they care or maybe they don't care about that information. But if it actually would go to a referendum, I would say at a council meeting, you know, here's why it did not pass in Escanaba, Michigan, and give those reasons. So people have the correct information and all the information that they need to make a wise decision on how they vote on it.
Can I move to a different topic?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. In a recent council meeting, you requested the city manager find out how much it would cost to include in the tax bill a list of those people who voted for the budget and those that voted against it. Isn't that just creating busy work for the administration?
No.
What is your goal in doing this?
My goal is, hopefully, if council members know that that's going to go out in the mail, maybe they sharpen their pencil a little bit more come budget time. They know that their name is going to be on that tax bill saying, I voted for 5.7, I voted no. But their name is going to be on that tax increase. And when people get that tax bill in the mail and it's gone up $300, they know who to call and say thank you very much.
But they already know this, don't they? This
No.
is all public information.
Well, of course it's public information. Tony, any given council meeting we have probably, outside of the regular people that come there, we probably have 3 or 4 people that come, you know, in the audience. Now, I know there's a lot of people you know, that are watching it on TV, but don't we owe it to the taxpayers to let them know who's voting for their money?
So you think there are people on the council that would be deterred from voting for a 5% tax increase if they thought that their name was going to be on the bill saying I voted for this?
I'm saying that they would probably be a little more responsible with taxpayers' money, knowing that their name is going to be going out with that tax bill. Maybe there'll be a reduction in taxes. So wouldn't you love to have your name associated with a reduction in taxes?
So you do believe that the 5 people who voted for that tax increase were being irresponsible?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because they didn't support your idea to freeze the wages of a certain class of employees.
Absolutely, and I got no support for any organizational analysis of the city administration, and if we're light in areas or if we're heavier in others. And I got no support. I mean, I've gotten no support for the inspection department situation. Do we have people there that we need to get rid of? Do we need more people to help alleviate the problem? It's just, I think it's just business as usual.
Okay.
Okay. Well, why don't you take, Paul, about 30, 45 seconds or so, look into camera 3 and tell folks why they should vote for you for our first mayor.
Well, as I stated previously, I think the mayor needs to take a leadership role in the city of Oshkosh. In April, I've been on the council for 5 years, and I think I've been responsible with your money, and I think I've already shown a leadership role. You now have the right to vote for your mayor, something that you haven't had for almost 50 years. And I would love the privilege to be your mayor. So I would ask that you vote for Paul Esslinger on February 15th in the primary and then April 5th in the general election. Okay.
Very good. Paul, thanks very much for being here. It's
Thanks
always enlightening. And if you don't mind, I'd like to get a copy of that.
You can have this one.
It's always good information to have.
Yep.
Tony, thank you. And as always, thanks to you folks at home for bringing us into your homes and getting educated about city politics. That's going to do it for this edition. We'll see you next time. Until then, for Paul Esslinger and Tony Palmeri, I'm Cheryl Hentz. Take good care, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.